Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Catholics Living Discipleship. I'm your host, Darren Nelson. How would you like to discover within a few minutes some of the Catholics who are living within the parish boundary but are not yet registered with your parish? Or how would you like to discover who are the single parents living within your parish boundaries that could use your support? Now, we both know that these two examples are the way in which we are called to be missionary at our parishes. Well, in today's episode, you're going to be able to learn about a very powerful software technology that helps the parish to become more mission focused. Emily Reese, a strategic consultant with ACS Technologies, shares with us the software called MissionInsite. Now, my hope with this conversation is twofold for you. One, to introduce you to the software if you're not familiar with it yet, and then two, to encourage you to go and explore the software and really see how this can help your parish become more mission focused. So, follow along in this conversation and really learn how technology can become a very important part of our missionary strategic planning at the parish. And then after the conversation, I hope that you share some of your comments below. Maybe you already use this technology, or tell us about what the experience is that you have at your parish in the way in which this technology can help. So let's jump into the conversation and see what we can discover together as we look at MissionInsite by ACS Technologies. Well, hey, Emily, thank you so much and welcome to the podcast, Catholics Living Discipleship. I'm so grateful for your time. I'm excited about having this conversation with you around MissionInsite because I really believe it's a great tool for listeners and viewers to continue to learn about as a way to help move the mission. So thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Great to be here today.
Great. So why don't you just start off, just briefly, just talk about what your role is and what it is that you do with ACS Technologies and how you became involved in MissionInsite,
Mhm.
consultant there.
Yeah, my role is as the strategic consultant for Mission Insight and ministry advancement. So the idea is how do we leverage the tools of Mission Insight, our demographic platform, to then create opportunities for ministry for congregations in their communities so they can better understand their communities and better meet the needs of the folks there, and then do a better job of communicating who they are and what they have to offer to serve those needs within those communities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when you to better understand,
Hmm.
right? Like that's so crucial and key
Yep.
when I'm working with leaders and pastors, we're grappling with how do we do that,
Hmm.
right? And oftentimes we're talking about, well, maybe we need to send out a survey, or we're talking about people in a way that have we presume we
Yep.
know, right? And we try to work with what we presume we know, and then
Hmm.
we're wondering why that's not working, and then we try to shift, with another presumption and kind of throw it out there. I like to fish, right? So it's
Hmm.
like I'll try this bait and that's not working well, let me try this. But what I'm excited about is technology really is becoming a very effective tool that parishes can be using to help answer this question: who are they?
Yeah, absolutely.
And how can we help them?
Instead of fishing blindly, right, casting wherever, tools like Mission Insight enable you to be more strategic in looking in specific locations for specific groups of people.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm sure a lot of the viewers, listeners may not be aware of what Mission Insight is. Can you
Mhm.
kind of give us an overview? Like, what is that?
Mhm.
And maybe even, I know we've done a podcast with ACS Technologies before, but maybe also just give an overview from your perspective. What's the vision of it?
Yeah.
Why Mission Insight?
Mhm. So, back up a little bit, ACS Technologies is a company that's been around since the late 70s and providing technology solutions for congregations ever since then. So, began with the main focus of managing finances and payroll for congregations, and then has branched out into a number of different areas as well. So, managing your statements for giving and managing contacts for people who are part of the parish, or working on lots of different options. So one of the plugins, and what we call it is an extender, it extends your ministry reach, is MissionInsite. And so through the years, ACST has acquired several different software tools. MissionInsite is one of them. And so MI, which we lovingly refer to it in our lingo, is one of the tools that enables us to look more carefully at communities. And so the goal behind that was to help people really understand who are the people living all around you. How can you better connect with your neighbors because you understand who they really are instead of just who you think they are.
Hmm.
And so what we've found over the years is that people tend to fix in their mind who their neighbors are, and then lo and behold, that community has changed all around them and they haven't even been aware of it. Oftentimes, churches, people who are part of congregations tend to get very targeted in their ways of doing things. They take the same route to church every week. They go in the same door every week. They do all sorts of things that are just very routine for them. And so they are not paying attention to their surroundings. And so that's a big piece of what's going on. I'm so sorry for the dog. We're going to have to pause and go back. Are you hearing the dog?
No, 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 no.
Okay, so MissionInsite is one of the tools of ACS Technologies that helps us to get a real perspective on who the people are in our neighborhood so we can do a better job of making connections and relationships with them.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I love the fact that we have the dog a part of this podcast. So, you know,
I figured you'd edit that out.
um, so what are some of the ways that you utilize this software
Mhm,
once a parish starts to become interested, you
mhm,
know? Um, Share with us some of the key ways that you will help them to think about how to use the software in a way that can get them started thinking differently or
mhm.
seeing things differently.
Yeah. So I've been using MissionInsite since 2009. And so that's very shortly after the company was founded and the software was developed. And so I've been looking at it at a variety of levels, if you will. I started using MissionInsite when I was working for a denominational office and trying to help congregations understand the power of really knowing their communities. And so then also working at other levels within denominations and local churches. And so right now I'm part of the discipleship team at my local congregation. And so I'm using the tools of MissionInsite to help us understand where are our people living in relation to the church property? How are they clustering perhaps in certain neighborhoods? And what does that mean for us? So that's an interesting dynamic to take a look at when we plot our congregants and compare that to the people in the neighborhoods. Who are the people that are living nearby that are folks we might want to reach? So, an example of that would be we want to do a ministry outreach to single parents. So, in the MissionInsite system, we can actually pinpoint neighborhoods where there's a high concentration of single parents. And then if we add our parishioners in through the people plotting
Mm.
system, then we can notice where, well, gosh, we've got a congregant who's living two doors down from one of these families. I wonder if they already know that person. And maybe there's a way for us to help that congregant build a more loving and supportive neighboring relationship with the person living two doors down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, as a listener or viewer, right, I always like to kind of take that perspective as I'm listening to my
Mhm.
guests. That's really an interesting way to approach the question that comes around the table of, hey, we have single parents here in the parish and we want to engage them.
Mhm.
Yes, we do. But you know what? We also have single parents in our community. So how do we become even greater in the mission of outreach to single parents, not just not just the ones we know in our parish,
Right.
but also the ones who are in our community.
Mhm.
Now the accompaniment model that a parish is looking to foster and grow, um, it has now expanded
Mhm.
and provided for that ministry almost like a twofold opportunity. Hey, yes, let's reach the single parents at our parish. Let's
Mhm.
think about how we do that. But also, what's the message that we want to bring to single parents out into the community who aren't necessarily registered or maybe not even part of the Catholic Church, but
Right.
we want to bring a message to them.
Mhm.
Now, Emily, I think people might be saying to themselves right now, but how do you, or how does the software know that and
Mhm.
distinguish that's our parishioner,
Yep.
single family, single person,
Mhm.
single, but then that's not our parishioner. So
Right.
tell us, just
Yeah.
so viewers, listeners can wrap that around their brain. How does that happen?
Sure. So we have four key inputs of data into the Mission Insight system. And so a lot of times people think it's all about the census data, and that's one of the inputs. And so whenever we respond to the US Census, we give information about our household and who lives there and what is going on there in terms of all of those questions, right, that we see. And so there's a company that we work with called Synergos, and they have a product called PopStats. So PopStats takes the 10-year timeframes between census and they project trends based on what they're seeing in annual sampling that would be okay, what's changed since the last census? And then they'll project out, okay, this is how the population is growing. This is how the population is shifting. This is the different people types that are moving into the area and that sort of thing. So that's one of the inputs we have. Another is called Mosaic. And so this is based on 600 different factors that are looked at to help classify and group people together. So, mosaic groupings enable us to understand people's purchasing power, people's uh, patterns of behavior, whether they're a renter or a homeowner, whether they have a blue collar job or a white collar job, whether they are in an environment where they're heavily mortgaged or they have a level of income that can support the lifestyle that they've had. And so those groupings are kind of an interesting way of thinking about how people cluster in like communities. So down to a census block group, we could see the number and type of people who are living in a particular area. And typically they're going to cluster. So that's what that factor is about. So that's mosaic. And then we've got epsilon, which is household level data that tracks trends. So let's say we bought something from Lowe's, for example, and we've got some new something going on in the house. So that gets triggered, and so those kinds of bits of information are qualified into Epsilon. And then Epsilon verifies data at the household level with US Postal information. So they're looking to see this address exists. And yeah, we have confirmation from the US Postal Service of this person actually living at this address.
Hmm.
So that then gives us a qualifying kind of thing that would say, oh, yeah, okay, that's an actual person living at that address. Oh, hey, they bought Pampers diapers. And we know that there was another event here that was uh, they had a baby that was registered in this household. So you compare all of these things together to get more of a profile of that actual household. So that's what epsilon does. And then that enables us to plot on the map in a community. This is the households with single parents. That's what that feature gives us. And then we have the American Community survey data along with that, that feeds into all of that information on these maps. And then our final bit of information is the American Beliefs Survey. So this is a study that has been going on for more than 20 years in various iterations. And what we're looking at there is people's religious beliefs and preferences and practices. So people are giving us a sense of, yes, I'm a Catholic. No, I'm not really anything. Oh, I'm a practicing Buddhist, that sort of thing. And then we ask specific questions about, what do you believe about Jesus? What do you think are the most important moral trends in the world? What do you do with your free time? And why are you engaging in the activities that you're doing? And the number one thing people have told us is they're doing their hobbies because they're trying to avoid boredom,
Mm,
those kinds of things.
mm,
And so that is information that then gets fed into the system, and we can map it out on the Mission Insight product.
hmm. Wow. With all that, I mean, I'm ready to sign up right now.
Yeah, I'd love to show you some of
But
how it works in the system if you have
yeah,
something for me to
yeah,
demo.
yeah. Before we go to that,
Sure.
one thing, just that information, the last part that you
Mhm.
said about beliefs,
Yeah.
what people are believing,
Hmm.
right? And I'm sure you know this. I mean, statistically,
Hmm.
the largest groups right now and is not the Catholics, but are the nuns, right?
Yep,
Those who
absolutely.
don't
No particular religion.
know
Yep.
particular religion.
Mhm.
And we as Catholics, when we sit around the table trying to strategically
Mhm.
plan, if you will, if we use that language, and we're trying to understand who in our area, because I'm leading to this question, I
Mhm.
think people are asking, who in this area are are that and
Mhm.
Catholic and of other religious denominations and
Right.
beliefs. Um, but here's a question that was rattling around in my brain as you were saying all this
Mhm.
that someone might have is, Emily, that's great. Mission Insight can do that. Our database that houses all of our parishioners is
Mhm.
this database, not
Yep.
not Mission Insight. So that means we gotta, does that mean that we have to print out our database
Mhm.
and then print out Mission Insight and compare physically?
Yeah.
Or how does that work? Like
Yeah.
Mission Insight can show me the
Mhm.
parishioners that live in that particular
Mhm.
area. How does that happen?
Yeah, so the really cool, powerful piece of data is when you can upload your congregant information into the Mission Insight system. So we have a template that we download, and then if a parish is keeping the information in a database, they can export that as a CSV file,
Mhm.
and then you can put the information into the template that then uploads into the Mission Insight system. So the way that we do that, then, as long as we've got a congregant street address, not a PO box, with the street address, city, state, and zip, we can map it in the Mission Insight system.
Mhm.
So then you can actually see your congregants as dots on the map. And then if we turn that on with our Neighbor Center feature, that's where we can see, gosh, your congregant is living in a household that's marked a single parent household. And, let's see, do the names match?
Yeah.
We know, hey, looky there. We've got a single mom that's living in this household and is part of our parish. So that's the place where we can really see the power.
Yeah. So, listener, if you, particularly listeners, if you're
Mhm.
listening to this as an audio right now, we're going to encourage you after you listen to it to come over and view it as the YouTube channel on the YouTube channel, because Emily's now going to show us the power of this platform,
Mhm,
right? We'll share a little bit, but we will keep the conversation so that those who are listening, by audio,
mhm.
we'll try to help you visualize it as well. But we do encourage you to view it at the YouTube channel as well. So Emily, why don't you share something that can really help us to see the power of this?
Sure. So you should be seeing a map of South Carolina right now. And this is our demo site because ACS Technologies is based in Florence, South Carolina. So if we zoom in, we're going to see the ACS Technologies Church of the Living Bread, which is our default demo place because that's where the facility is located. So this is one of the areas where anybody who would be demonstrating this product could go into this and just show information, show how we use the system, run reports, and demonstrate the information that we've been talking about. And so if we're going to zoom in here to this ACS Technologies area, we can see that it's located in this area close to I-95. And so this gives us a sense of Interstate 20 and Interstate 95 off the Purple Heart Highway near Hoffmeyer Crossroads. So we're zooming in into this area. And so one of the ways that we can use this is we can then turn on our neighbor center. So I'm going to click over here. We're going to go to the neighbor center and we're just going to turn on that information. And we're going to say Florence, South Carolina. And so we're going to just select our boundary area here and we're going to zoom in. And then we are going to look here at what we want to see in terms of the characteristics of the neighbor center. So I'm going to just choose female and we're going to choose single and we're going to choose children in the household are present. And so this will give us single moms and this will give us a way of showing the information. So we're going to say children in household and we're going to then plot. So as we're looking at this, it's going to zoom out again because it's going to show us where we are looking for this information. So we're going to see that we've got these purple dots, and I'm going to zoom in over here near Palmetto Street. And so if we click on this dot, it's going to give us information about this person who's living in this area and the single parents living in the household. And so we're going to be looking at these and giving us a sense of, well, who are these people that we're looking at? And so we've got, in this instance, we've got 3 households at this point. So this tells us that 3 households with single parents with kids in there are living in this age. And so this place is probably an apartment complex or a multifamily house unit. And so these are the ways in which we can examine the information that we're looking at. So then this, if we zoom out a bit, we can see all these different dots where there are locations of the criteria that we have requested. And so then if we've got congregants that are also plotted here, we're going to just go to our people plot and we're going to default our congregants. We're going to just show the study for the South Carolina study and the Ministry Smart Church. And we're going to see how our congregants will plot alongside that. So this will give us a sense of where our people are in relation to the groups of people. So if we zoom in here, we're going to see some green dots alongside the purple ones. And then that's going to give us a sense. So over here in this neighborhood, for example, we've got this larger dot that shows we've got multiple families living under the same criteria. And then we've got all these other dots. So these are places where our congregants are living. So we can see in this corner here, we've got 3 or 4, 5, 6 different families with headed by females with kids in the house and other families living nearby who are part of our congregation. So the proximity factor is an important one to think about, that how could we help these neighbors reach out to their neighbors in meaningful and helpful ways?
Yeah, and what I love how this software um, supports, encourages accompaniment at the parish,
Mhm.
right? Because accompaniment is, um, I don't know if this is the right way of saying it, an important topic
Mhm.
that we're having conversations about at the parish level, especially through key volunteers and leaders. How do we accompany people,
Mhm.
and how do we help teach people to accompany others?
Right. That is a key piece for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So when we have a tool like this and we can see in, I don't know, just going to use my last name, the Nelson neighborhood
Hmm.
does have a few of these single moms.
Hmm.
We now can pinpoint, hey, my wife's name is Margie. Hey, Margie, listen, in your neighborhood, there are a few single moms.
Hmm.
Do you happen to know them? Would
Hmm.
you be willing to reach out to them and invite them to this women's ministry,
Hmm.
that this women's event that we're having at the
Hmm.
parish?
Right.
You know, I think viewers, listeners are really starting to see the
Hmm.
potential power of this tool
Absolutely.
for the conversations that's happening at the parish. This
Yeah.
isn't just a software to have a software for, right?
Right.
This is a software to have that can really help generate the ways in which we think
Hmm.
about the message and the way in which we can accompany people.
Hmm.
That's the power that this tool has.
Absolutely. So, one of the things in my role on our discipleship ministry at my congregation that we're looking at is we've done the plotting of our people and we're looking at neighborhood groups. So, what would it look like for, let's play this example out of these moms in this neighborhood that we've been looking at. So, what would it look like if we created a moms group where moms could be supportive of one another and maybe they would meet on a weekly or whatever timeline basis that worked for everybody's schedule to support one another and maybe offer a word of prayer and help people understand that they're not alone in trying to raise their kids.
Mhm.
There's the power of community and accompaniment.
Yeah. And there's a parish that I'm working with right now, where I helped establish small Christian communities,
Mhm.
and it's going very well.
Mhm.
And one of the encouragements that they have from this experience is we want other people to experience what we're experiencing.
Mhm.
And this tool can help you. Yes, we're with this specific example, we're
Mhm.
identifying people who may not yet be parishioners, but this tool can also help you identify in the Nelson neighborhood, there are parishioners. The place where you're having your small Christian community, there are other parishioners that you can reach out to and say,
Yes,
hey, would you be interested in participating?
absolutely.
So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, that's just I think again another beauty to the way in which you can help current ministries
Mhm.
grow,
Yep.
right? And grow in the mission, not grow just to grow, but to grow in the mission and be
Mhm.
really reaching people, to help them grow in their own faith journey. So,
Right.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Within the system, we can also run some opportunity scans and theme maps that enable us to understand where higher concentrations of people who say they're Catholic are living. And so that's another place where you could say, well, gosh, people say they're Catholic here, but we don't really have a whole lot of parishioners there. I wonder what that's about. No, it could be that they're enrolled in another parish, right?
Mhm,
But it could be that there's some overlap.
mhm,
And so that maybe there are a couple of different parishes that have people living in certain parts of the parish that aren't necessarily along those boundary lines. But I think that's a useful tool as well, just to help people understand where people are enrolling
mhm,
in which parish. And maybe there is a place where, well, gosh, there are three or four different parishes that are represented by this group of people in this particular neighborhood.
mhm,
Let's talk about that. Let's explore that. What does that mean for us?
mhm.
Hmm.
So Emily, when you let's just take an example of okay, a parish has engaged Mission Insight. They said yes. What are some of the first practical things
Mhm,
that a parish will use Mission Insight for,
mhm.
to maybe bring it to that simplicity so that our viewers, listeners can say, okay, let's say we do bring it aboard. What what do most people start? Like, where
Yeah.
do they start?
Most of the time, people are going to start with one of our predefined reports, which is the first one, and my favorite actually, is called the Quick Insight Report. And so we would define an area that we're looking at, and then we can run a report based on that. And so then that gives us a sense of some key demographic variables of that community. So you can get a feel for who's really living in your neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I like about the Quick Insight Report is that it highlights trends. So it's saying, is this area growing? Is it declining? Are the number of kids in school growing, declining, staying the same? Uh, is there a level of poverty that we need to be concerned about in this area? So are the people in this geography higher or lower than the average poverty of your state, that sort of thing. And so for me, it's just a good first blush of what's going on here. And then we've got other things that we can go a little bit deeper in. And oftentimes, when parishes, leadership groups, and priests and others look at these reports, it gives them a perspective on their communities that is a little surprising to them at times. Other times it just confirms what they've already experienced.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that's an important thing to look at as well. So
Mm-hmm.
we've got some worksheets then and some workshops that go along with that. So let's say you wanted to talk about the data that's coming out of Mission Insight with a parish leadership council. Then you would be able to say, well, here's what you're thinking and here's what the numbers say.
Yeah.
And so, how do we reconcile that? And what does that look like for us as a leadership team to think about? And how would we want to respond as a parish to
Mm-hmm.
this new information?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the things that I saw on the landing page for Mission
Mhm,
Insight that
mhm,
I really thought the way in which it was said was encouraging.
mhm,
Um, there's finance councils.
mhm,
Part of their role is to understand given trends,
mhm,
at the parish and also ways not that it's about money, but um, many of us know that in order to keep parishes
mhm,
fruit filled,
yeah,
finances is part of the conversation that we need to have.
mhm,
This Mission Insight, it helps us to see what the stewardship potential. I
mhm,
know I'm not saying exactly how it's said on the landing page, but
mhm,
really the stewardship potential. What's the potential in our area?
mhm,
And how are we how are we doing
mhm,
with that? And I remember watching, I was part of a webinar where Terry was talking about this tool.
mhm.
Um, and that's a great gauge for a
Yes,
parish
it
to
is.
look at.
Mhm,
Hey, the
mhm,
potential in this area is this number.
mhm,
Right now, we sit at this number.
mhm.
Uh, let's set a goal to move up a little bit and hit this
Right.
number.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So one of the tools that's part of Mission Insight that helps you get at that information is called the Comparative Insight Report. So we take the information about the community that's found in the Quick Insight Report and the Executive Insight Report. And then some of that information gets pulled into this comparative report where you're actually comparing what the community looks like with what do your parishioners look like?
Hmm.
So, are your parishioners older than the community? Are your parishioners wealthier or poorer than the community? And so, based on those mosaic profiles that I was talking about earlier, we are getting a sense of what the community profile looks like, and then what the parish looks like in comparison. So
Mhm.
I'll just demo that if that's okay.
Yeah, let's do that. That'd be
All right,
great.
let's take a look. So we've already got our plot up. And so we've got the information here. I'm going to just change the color of these dots because I think it'll be easier to see if we have a different shade. So, um,
What do you think about the color blue, Emily?
yeah, I think blue would be great. So
To
let's
match
see.
the shirts that we have.
Yeah. So we've got our neighbors in this kind of purplish color, but
Yeah.
if we've got our people plots, then we can change that out to a different color. So we're
Whatever
gonna,
color you think. I was just
yeah, no, I think the green is just a little hard to see. So we are gonna go with the congregants and we're gonna change that green to a more vibrant blue. I think that pops a
there
little
we
bit
go.
better. So this is the plot that we're seeing. And so typically what we're going to do is draw a shape around this plot because then we can run a report. We can't run a report on just the whole South Carolina, right? We
Mhm.
could, but we really don't want to do that. That's not a useful thing for us. But what we want to do is then draw this shape. So we're going to just do a basic polygon. And we're going to just take this tool and we're going to just draw around most of these dots. So you're seeing that I'm drawing this. And here's where we then get an opportunity to run some information. So we're going to close that down a little bit. And then over in our information area, we're going to see how many of the congregants that we've plotted are included in this polygon. So down here, we're looking at if we've plotted 373 households, we've got 82% of them here. So I may just change this ever so slightly to grab this group of people over here.
So right now we're grabbing as we move it, it's probably going to go up, but there you go. 90% of our congregants are within what we have just indicated with this
Correct.
poly.
So you've got in this a really good picture of who your congregants are when you run this comparative report. So that's what we're going to do at this point. And um, we're going to turn off the agency boundary and just go with the polygon. So then once we've got a geography selected, we can run these reports. So we're going to go to generate reports. And under the generate reports, we're going to go with a comparative insight. No, we're not, because that is, okay, we're going to take that out. We're going to add in the information here. We're going to go to generate reports. Under the demographics area, so we've got the custom reports. So you could choose any particular demographics on that you want to look at. Under the predefined reports, we've got the quick insight that I talked about before, the executive insight, ministry
Mhm.
insight. That's the what are needs and what are people saying about what's important to them in the
Mhm.
community. Religious insight gives you more insights into what do people believe about God? What do they believe about Jesus? What do they say is their religious affiliation? That sort of thing. And in the comparative insight, then we're going to get this information here in this polygon. And we're also going to be comparing the people in the community to the people in the parish.
Wow.
So as that report runs, and you can see that it's generating a report, we're going to get that built. We'll bring that up and we'll take a look at it. The fun part about this is to see how well do you match your community. What
Hmm.
we like to see is when parishes and churches really match the community well, because then that gives us a sense that they're doing a good job of really understanding who the people are in their community and reaching them well. So I'm just going to pull this report up and pull it over into the screen. Are you seeing that
Yep.
PDF? Okay.
Yes.
So we're going to zoom on in. And so we can see the study area that we've defined. And we're going to just keep scrolling down here. So we've got 412 people that were plotted, and that represents 221 households. So let's say we have a parish where we've got a lot of married couples, and some
Mhm.
of them have some kids that are part of this plot. So that's why we tend to see fewer people, households, than we do overall people when we have one of these reports. The mosaic segments in the study area, 68 of 71 household types are living in this polygon area that we've drawn. But in this particular group from this parish or this church, we only have 30 of those. So we're at about little less than half of the people types that are present in the community are present in this congregation. So for me, that's one signal of, okay, we're specializing a little bit. We're not reaching broadly, we're more narrowed in the people that are part of our congregation. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. So just that's on first blush as I'm looking at this.
Yeah.
Now we're looking at this and we're going to see along here the mosaic segments. So the projection of what are the ages of these people based on the mosaic households. Plus then over here on the right, these are the people of the congregation. So we're looking at how that stacks out. And what we're looking at is a comparative index. So if an index, the baseline is 100, if we're well below that, that means we're underrepresented with that group of people. If we're well above it, that means we're overrepresented with that group of people. So here in this age 66 to 75, we're at 123. So that means 1.23 people are part of this congregation. And so much more represented in that area than we are in these younger age groups. Very typical of a lot of congregations and parishes because as we look around, oftentimes in mass or in worship, we would be seeing some older folks, right? So
Mhm.
this is
Mhm.
fairly normal for us to see in a comparative report.
Mhm.
But
Now,
we,
Emily, before
yeah,
you scroll down real
sure.
quick, so I'm seeing age 19 to 24 and age 25 to 30
Yeah.
that they're in red is
Uh-huh.
89 and
Yep.
85%.
Right.
Does that mean that that's the congregants or
Yes.
89% of that range?
So that means that if you're looking at the possibility of 1,241 or 2,500 persons in the study area
Yep.
that are of that age group,
Yep.
then seven of them in the parish or 14 of them in the parish, that means it's well underrepresented in terms of the percentage of people in the parish that reflect that people group in the community.
Yeah.
So
So
we're talking an 89% and an 85% instead of you would hope to see a better reflection of that.
yeah, so just just so I clarify this for myself and maybe those who are viewing.
Mhm.
So the weighted count 14, we have at this parish we have 14 people within that age
That
category.
would be the estimate based
Yeah.
on the system mapping where they live. Yeah.
Yeah. Um the count study area 2,482,
Mhm.
that is the the s- the actual number of people in that age group in this mapped area.
That would be the system projection of the mosaics related to that in the polygon area that we have drawn.
Yep.
So
So
that would say in this area, there ought to be 1,241 people age 18 to or 19 to 24 and almost 2,500 age 25 to 30.
right. And in our parish at the moment, we have 14 of those 2,400.
Right. Because we're looking at a population much higher than what we would have as members of any congregation or parish.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm just highlighting that because I
Mhm.
know, I mean, that would certainly stimulate
Mhm.
people to
Mhm.
say or encourage people to say, yes, and parishes know this. Yes, we need to engage the young
Right.
a little bit
Exactly.
more. It's
Yeah.
much like when I consult with parishes, one of the first things that I do is I ask them to print out their list of new parishioners
Huh?
for the year,
Mhm.
right? And then I'll go to the key leaders and say, out of this list, who do you know?
Mhm.
And most of them will look at it and say, we maybe a few. I
Yeah.
think I know, I think I know Emily,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
and but then what starts to happen, and I love this, is they start to say to themselves, how can we start engaging these new parishioners?
Right.
We
That's right.
haven't been
That's
in
right.
the way in which we should be. So
Mhm.
something like this, I believe will do the same thing.
It's eye-opening. It really is.
Yes.
So if we go beyond the basic demographic reports and we really do plot our people and we begin to get a picture of this, I'm going to scroll down to this area where we're looking at the mosaic information. So this is where it begins to get clearer and clearer to us. So let's say in this area we have approximately 4,290 people who fit this mosaic profile of rural Southern bliss. But we have only 27 of them in our congregant households. So that shows a comparative index of 95. And so that's not an area where we're doing particularly well, right? Whereas here we're seeing a 162. So we're indexing higher in this next one down. And this urban legacies group, okay, so this is one of the poorest mosaic segments. So this is indicating that we're really reaching a poorer group of congregants. So, from a financial standpoint, that's a clue that we need to be thinking about because, as we talked about before, on a stewardship standpoint, we do need to have functioning capital for
Yep.
congregations, right? So, if we're doing really well in the poorer segments and not so well in the ones that have more means, then we're probably struggling more as a congregation and a parish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a way for us to begin to get a picture of that. And then as we continue on, we actually have a projection in the report that builds out of these 412 people, the 221 households, and we see how many of them are in each of these mosaic segments. So this report prints out in order of wealthiest to poorest. So the wealthiest Americans are this American royalty segment. And doesn't that paint a mental picture for you?
It does, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can picture American royalty and recognize, gosh, they probably are the wealthiest people. We might put even a face to them that we've seen on television or in the movies or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but then we see the households times the median income of that household segment, and then we get an estimate of the projected income of our congregation or our parish based on the number of households that we have at that projected income level. So then we would see that, oh, this couples with clout, we've got five of those, and their average income, their median income by that segment is 172,000, which projects out 860,000 as their annual income of those five families together.
Yep.
So then we're going to see all of this totaled up at the end of this report, and it'll be a projection of what is the earning potential of your parish?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that boils down to this number that we see here, which is 13,370,325. Now, most of the time when parish leaders see that number, their minds kind of explode. And so they're thinking, wow, we had no idea that there was this kind of earning potential in this community. Now,
Mm-hmm.
other times, if you're living in a wealthier community, you might be just affirmed in what you're thinking when you see the numbers that are associated. So this is one of those things that you're looking at to understand, gosh, maybe there is more potential here than we were thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Because most
Yeah.
congregations struggle with this.
Yeah. And Emily, it just helps me think about there's a few pastors that talk to me about the giving at their parish
Mhm.
and how the number of parishioners, what they give, and how to increase what
Uh-huh.
it is that they do give.
Right.
I think this is again, I'm just thinking through some of
Mhm,
the conversations I have. It's just another way, like you said, affirm. It's another way to affirm what it is that they believe is happening at their
mhm,
parish
mhm.
and look at it in a way to say, hey, I don't know all the mosaic terminology correct, but this mosaic group I'm we're doing well with.
Mhm.
But this mosaic group we really need to pay a little bit more attention to.
Right.
And and I hope the viewers and listeners understand the power of this tool and what I'm about to say.
Mhm.
Now you can use this tool to say, I don't necessarily need to hit the higher mosaic group. I can really whittle down a message right to the people who I'm trying to encourage to give a little bit more.
Right.
Where before it's you're throwing out a message to everybody.
Yes.
But now you can really see and discover your parishioners in that specific group to say and tailor a specific message to them, right?
Right.
And I think
Right.
that's really one of the key ways to communicate today
Mhm.
is very specific, very intentional.
Absolutely. I mean, we all get messages targeted specifically to us based on the links that we click and the websites we visit and the videos we watch on
Yeah,
social media, et cetera. And so we can be very sophisticated in that kind of targeting, just like other marketers can do. So
yeah,
in this instance, if we're looking at the giving potential and then we on this last part of this report, we're looking at what would be the average budget of the parish. Then, if we're seeing this kind of giving potential and this kind of budget, where's the disconnect? Or are we doing really well? Maybe
yeah,
we're just really hitting it out of the ballpark, right?
yeah,
But otherwise, we could say, I wonder how we could perhaps encourage people to give closer to the tithe,
yeah, yeah,
which is that biblical standard of giving that we hope that everyone can ultimately get to, right?
yeah.
And beyond. But this gives us a sense. So let's say our parish budget is 500,000. So we're in the 4% range of the potential giving in this instance. And so in years and years and years of working with this, I have not seen a congregation that has been even close to a tithe. More likely they're in the 3% range of what you would see in the comparative insight report and the actual budgeting of the church.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are some comparisons too, to just think, well, what could we do? How could we help people to better understand our mission and be more supportive of it? And I'm a big believer that money follows mission. So if people really believe in a mission that you're pursuing, that if you communicate the message well about the impact of that mission, that people's hearts will be open and that their minds will follow, and so will their wallets.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm. Well, one thing that I love about our conversation, Emily, is you really understand this.
Hmm.
You really understand this. And, you know, I have to believe, and I say this just based off of experience of working with leaders in parishes, that one of the things that we struggle with, especially today, is truly understanding the data that we have at the parish.
Hmm.
And even I would probably say to take one step back further is not even really understanding the data that we have at the parish. We and we started off the conversation by saying we presume what we know, but just in today's world, with things moving so quickly, right? The awareness that that I believe that this technology that you have, Mission Insight, and the probably thousands of conversations that you have had with parishes, um, ministry leaders, committees at parishes really, really, really can benefit to help significantly move the mission at the
Hmm.
parish. So I overemphasize that because, you know, having this conversation with you today has just helped me to gain a deeper insight and awareness to that specific fact.
Yeah.
That,
So many times we have data available to us that we aren't leveraging to the extent that we could and
yeah,
should.
yeah,
And that's one of the things with Mission Insight. We try to help people understand that this isn't just about the numbers, this is about your neighbors.
yeah,
And so, what can we help you learn about your neighbors that can help you be better equipped to serve them and love them as we're called to do,
yeah,
and to be able to share the good news
yeah,
and be a reflection of Jesus among them?
yeah, yeah. So, I'm going to play the role of the listener and viewer. Okay,
Mhm,
Emily, that was a lot of great information. I'm
mhm,
intrigued.
mhm,
What can I do to learn a little bit more
mhm,
about ACS Technologies, Mission Insight? What would you recommend is the next step for those who are, hey, I'm intrigued. Now I
mhm.
want to take a little bit more, and take a few more bites.
Sure. That's a great question. Appreciate it. Oftentimes, dioceses will have an instance of Mission Insight that parishes don't even know they actually have access to.
Hmm.
So, one first step might be find out if your diocese already has Mission Insight and you can register to use the product. So, that would be step one. Another would be if you find that they don't have it, missioninsight.com is a place to go to learn more about the tool itself and the possibilities of scheduling a demo if you were interested in seeing the product, and one of our sales team can help with that. And if you're interested in contacting me or the team at Mission Insight, Mission Insight at ACST.com. That is MissionInsite. And it's all one word, at ACST.com.
Yeah, great. And we'll have all those links in the descriptions below, so you can do that. Look at the links. I would also encourage, and this is one of the ways that I've gotten to know a little bit more about your company, is get registered for their webinars. They
Yeah.
do fantastic webinars, very informative,
Mhm,
very encouraging
mhm.
along the mission. And that's what I truly love about your company is you're focused on helping with the mission,
Yep.
not helping with getting another product in the door, but with truly helping the mission. So, Emily, this has been great. I just love talking with you. It's been a great conversation. I really thank you
My pleasure.
for taking the time, being a part of this, and just want to encourage our viewers and listeners. Please check out the links, and also, if you can visit our Facebook. Page and maybe share some of your experiences. If you're a current customer, if you use Mission Insight, go there and share to encourage other people of what your experiences have been. So, Emily, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thanks so much.
All right. Take care, everyone, and God bless. Well, I hope you found this conversation very encouraging, enlightening. I hope it encourages you to go and look a little bit more at Mission Insight. Please see the description below. You can find the contact information for Emily as well as the links for ACS Technology and Mission Insight. And if you can, it's always helpful if you hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel. So continue to grow in your relationship with Jesus Christ, grow as disciples, and encourage others to do the same. Thanks, everyone, and God bless.